Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast, the Lawyer Lifter podcast. And I am truly excited because this one is close to home. What I mean is, this is with Mandana Jafarinejad, my dearest friend. She is my of counsel, co-counsel, and a client. So she is just completely in-house. And hi, Mandana.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Good. So let me just tell you, Mandana is just exclusively who I work with for my high-end trademarks and patents. And I think that everybody out there is really interested in intellectual property, especially what intellectual property means to small business owners during this time. And Mandana is a patent attorney. And let me tell you, okay, so there are, in terms of lawyer hierarchies, patent attorneys are in a class of their own because not only did Mandana have to take the California State Bar, which at the time we took it was 3 days, and it is like the hardest bar to take to become licensed. But then she also, to be a patent attorney, had to take a separate bar exam, the patent bar exam. So it's like, it's not easy to be a patent attorney, and you need qualifications in your education to actually sit to take the patent bar. And so Mandana is literally everything. We work together, we party together, we talk together. And so I really am excited to have her here. She's going to be talking about what it means to be, what is the difference between a trademark and a patent. And especially, as I said, why intellectual property is more in reach for small business owners than you think it is. Some of my business owners are like, intellectual property, I mean, am I there? Like, why should I do it? So Mandana, take it away.
Wow. Well, thank you, Melissa. I should just hang out with you all day for a nice self-esteem boost, because I sound pretty amazing according to you.
You are amazing. You guys, like, you don't realize. Okay, so Mandana, we also went to law school, and even in law school, she had this like regal, very like sophisticated. I was like always like very intimidated to talk to her.
Oh gosh, Melissa.
Yeah, and then it still carries on. But the girl
You,
can party. The girl can party.
well, you work hard, you play hard, right?
Yeah. So, and okay, on top of all the just high end level like law stuff she does, she's also a wife and a mom. So let's just throw that in the mix. But okay, go ahead. I want
Well,
to just know, like, tell people, like, how does it what does it take to be a patent attorney first?
Okay, we'll start there. Yeah, so a patent attorney is a little bit, you touched on it already, but we're like the nerdy lawyers. We're typically the lawyers who didn't intend on going to law school. When we were in college, we were either scientists or engineers. You definitely need a science background to be a patent attorney. To sit for the patent bar is the rule. So can get into it, but briefly, sitting for the patent bar doesn't even require you to be a lawyer. You could be anybody with a BS, a Bachelor's of Science. So anybody with a science or engineering degree can sit for the patent bar. If you're not a lawyer, then and you pass the patent bar, you're a patent agent. If you are a lawyer and you pass the patent bar, you're a patent attorney. So that's the difference between a patent attorney, and a patent agent. Is one went to law school and the other one didn't.
So you're a scientist.
Yes. So my background, we're going way back here. My undergrad was biology. So I did not intend on going to law school when I was in college. I wanted to do research, and I did for a few years until I discovered that I don't enjoy research. It's a very lonely profession. So if you're a people person, I would not recommend going that route, but you really don't know what you're getting yourself into until you actually do it. And then that's life, right? That's the journey. You
Yeah.
try different things, you see what you like, you figure out what you don't like, and then you try something new. So I was working at a company called Allergan, which is a well-known company here in Orange County. You may know them as the makers of Botox. And I
Yes.
was doing research on Botox when I realized that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I decided to go to law school, and the company was very supportive. They supported me in every way possible to reach that goal, which I'm very grateful for. And that's where I even learned about, what a patent attorney is and what they do. I liked it. They let me do my externship in their legal department while I was in law school. So that was great. I really got trained by the absolute best on how to draft patents and respond to office actions and do all of the stuff that you need to learn to do to be a patent attorney. And yeah, so after my undergrad in bio, after some years in research at Allergan, I went to law school and became a patent attorney.
Yeah, so when Mandana does patents for some of our clients, what I envision, because I don't understand it because I'm not a patent attorney, but I understand the legal ramifications and the legal consequences and the overall benefit to clients to get, because essentially what it is when you trademark and when you patent is a high level protection. And so when I think about the patents that Mandana does, it's almost like reverse engineering your product or your service in order to put those barriers around your service or product so that no one else can breach. So what is then, because everybody is always wondering, and that's like possibly the number one question you and I get is, well, is it a trademark or is it a patent?
Good question. So, the way to kind of think about intellectual property rights is just that it's a property right. So, the same way you acquire rights when you own a piece of land, that those are the same rights you acquire when you own a piece of intellectual property. For example, a patent, the metes and bounds of a patent, the same way the metes and bounds of your real property, your land, can be measured, the same goes for patents. The metes and bounds of the patent can be measured by the claims. So the broader the claims, the bigger the piece of land, the bigger the property you own. So obviously, everybody wants the biggest piece of land, the broadest claim, so that nobody can trespass onto your rights. Same thing with property rights. Nobody can, when you own a piece of land, nobody can trespass upon your land. You're not forced to build on your land. You don't have to do anything with your land. The right that you acquire is the right to exclude others. And the same thing goes with patents. So for patents, when you own a patent, you don't have to use it. You don't have to make your product. You don't have to manufacture or sell anything, but you have the right to exclude others from doing so because it's your property right. So that's how I like to describe patents. Trademarks are a little bit of a different animal. Trademarks, the purpose in trademarks, and people don't always see it this way, but really the purpose in trademarks is to protect the public. So a trademark is a way for the general public to identify the source of goods so that when you see that Coca-Cola bottle on the shelf, you know where it came from. You know the company it came from. You know that they've been around for 100 years and they've got a trustworthy product. You're probably not going to get sick. They've built up quite a bit of goodwill with the public. You know what it tastes like. You understand the source of the goods. So that's the whole purpose in trademarks, is to prevent the public from a likelihood of confusion, being fooled as to the source of goods, because you as a company are investing in your product and your goodwill with the public, and you want to protect that goodwill.
So, what I see with the younger generation of business owners is that they're so savvy with creating a brand,
Hmm.
right? Like just an image, some text, and they
Hmm.
sell it right off the shelf. They're putting it on everything, and
Hmm.
that's their brand.
Yeah.
So, with something like that, and especially we see this on Instagram, we see this on YouTube because the with the advent of COVID, the barriers to entry into that specific market, into
Hmm.
branding yourself, into like self celebration,
Hmm.
it begs the question, do you want to trademark? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to prevent anyone else from using your brand, you should definitely trademark your brand. So, trademarks, since we're kind of going into the subject, I'll elaborate. Trademarks can either be a registration, like you would get when you apply for a trademark and submit an application with the USPTO, or they can be common law trademarks. So, Uplift, for example. If you just started using the name Uplift, and you've been using it for a while, you are, let's say you put a TM at the end of the word. Then you've put whoever sees that brand on notice that, hey, I intend this to be my trademark. So if you see this, that's what that TM means. And if they use it without your permission, once they've seen that TM at the end of your name, then you, and you can prove that, you can sue them for trademark infringement of your common law trademark rights. So the problem with that is you've got to prove knowledge, actual knowledge, and you've got to prove damages, which is difficult. As you know, you're a lawyer, you know how difficult that is. But when you have a registration, the USPTO puts the world on notice that that brand belongs to you. So whether they had actual knowledge is irrelevant. Damages are irrelevant because you get statutory damages right off the bat, unless you want to prove actual damages, which can be higher. But you don't have to jump through those additional hoops. So the benefit of getting a registration is that number one, you put the world on notice. You don't have to prove anybody saw your actual trademark to prove that there's infringement. And number two, you don't have to prove how much they made off of your brand in order to collect damages.
Yeah, and so I think that when we have an intellectual property discussion with a startup, that is not a topic that's so far out. That's not really a topic that you should be afraid of talking about now. Like when we start up businesses, especially in the younger demographic, we talk about, okay, like formation, we talk about relationships because that's the then discussion about contracts, but always because they're so savvy, because this generation is so creative, you should also consider as part of your fortification intellectual property, because if that's your moneymaker, then you need to protect it at all costs. Because as Mandana had said, just kind of putting that TM as a common law, because of course, you start off and you do whatever you can to just protect your design. Because let me tell you guys, like, we're not just talking about, when we talk about the brand, we're talking about also that tangibility. So we're talking about like the logo, your picture, your saying, your whatever. You trademark that, whatever you deem is the thing that grounds you in that brand, that is making you that money. You need to protect it because that is your source. And you do, like we tell our clients all the time, you do it now because we promise you that down the line, if you don't, and of course you're enjoying all that, all the um, labor, the fruit of your labor now, but down the line, it's going to blow up, because that's just, the bigger you get, the it is that saying, the harder you fall without those protections. And when we talk business, intellectual property is such a big topic, even for you guys, the younger generation. Now, Mandana, like, how do you feel like are you more excited at the new business owners coming around during COVID and kind of like right now? What have you been seeing?
Yeah. Well, just to kind of address the point you just made, for the truth of the matter is that for most businesses, most of your value is in your intellectual property. So if you ever are thinking about selling your business, if you're ever thinking about just evaluating your business and determining its total value, you'll see that intellectual property is a huge portion of any business. Um, More so the larger businesses who have established brands. But as your business grows, your the value of your brand will grow and contribute to the overall value of your business.
And then let me just piggyback off that to really underscore what you said. That okay, so breaking that down, Mandana just said intellectual property is a huge part of your business because Mandana said something earlier. Like when you look at a logo, like for instance, Coca Cola, right? Coca Cola is doing whatever it's doing behind the scenes, like to throw out to the public to make its money. At the end of the day, that like when you see Coca-Cola's image, when you see those words Coca-Cola, that inspires you. You know what? Versus this soda A or Coca-Cola, you want the Coca-Cola because you resonate with Coca-Cola because it brings, I don't know, tradition, it's safety, you know about it. And that's where your value is. Just like, the younger people here, the startups, like, please listen, what it's not you, if you are saying, I am the brand, then protect yourself, meaning protect your brand. Because obviously, when you go out on Instagram and you sell stuff, when you go on Facebook and you're selling stuff, your brand, people are going to associate your brand with with that logo. So it's inspiring in the public to trust your logo, to trust your brand. And that's why Mandana is saying that intellectual property, do not discount it as something like, I'll take care of it later. Well, if you intend to turn a profit on the brand, then you for sure need to protect whatever images or whatever come from that brand.
Just even in terms of outside investors coming in, one of the first questions they will ask when they do their due diligence is about your intellectual property. Have you gone to the trouble to protect your brand, your products, your inventions? Because if you haven't, that decreases the value of your company and what the worth that they will put on it, how much they'd be willing to invest or buy. So if you're just merely the act of attempting to protect your intellectual property shows that you understand, you're a savvy business owner, and you understand the consequences of protecting these rights. So just glad we were able to kind of touch on that before we move on to COVID in your question. But definitely it's worth it to invest in your intellectual property, not only for your own protection, but as a smart business owner, if you're interested in ever selling your company, that's going to be the first question any investor will ask. Anyway, moving on to
Yeah.
COVID. So we have seen a huge uptick in certain spaces since COVID hit. And I always say where one door closes, a window opens, or a window closes, a door. I don't remember how the saying is, but it's true. It's definitely true. We've seen a lot of activity in the PPE space. We've seen a lot of activity just generally in the biomedical, pharmaceutical product space. So I'm glad I have that science background these days because people are talking a whole lot of science that they don't understand or that doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess that's a different podcast. But yeah, we're definitely seeing an uptick in importing from China face masks, face shields, hand sanitizers, formulations for different hand sanitizers and surface sanitizers, all kinds of stuff. It's really interesting. The word that comes to mind is pivot, because everybody kind of talks about it, but to see people doing it in real time and actually having to do it yourself in real time as a pandemic is raging around us, and some people choose to kind of hunker down and not do anything, and watch their business crumble, I guess, or shrink.
Yeah.
And watching other people seize the opportunity is really, really amazing. Um, you know, I know that everybody's circumstances are different, but for those who can and do seize the opportunity, it's really something great to witness, because we're seeing a great need, and where there is need, um, and people have the ability to meet that need, great things can happen for all parties involved. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I will take it like a step further. The other day I was reading the latest what is it? The latest issue of Fortune magazine, and they did this really great spread, and I need to share this, but they did this spread on women in the labor force, and that is during this time of COVID, and the statistics were just jaw dropping in that the amount of job losses substantially come from women,
Mm,
because what we're seeing is that the tools that were provided to women to kick ass, like daycare, like school, like
mm,
whatever. And, of course, Mandana, chime in, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have kids at this time. You do. Those tools that were so relied upon by women during COVID were taken away. And so it was almost like I hate to use that word force, but it left women with careers, with especially those with the 9 to 5 more uh, humble jobs, to go back to work, to either just like quit their jobs, or just to try and make it work however they could with companies, because also we're seeing uh, changes, very slow changes in labor laws here in California, because there's a huge need to uplift these women and change the companies and how they deal with sick time or family time, that type of thing, leave, to allow these women to pivot in the home and to keep working. So one of the things is I am seeing just through my Instagram, through also some of my other clients, this huge, who are women, this huge adaptation to still continue a different type of way they do business. So, what are your thoughts on that? Now that we're seeing women who are out there, now they're back in here.
yeah, I think it's sometimes a blessing in disguise to be in this situation, because it really makes women and people in general take control over their situation and take risks that they might have never taken otherwise. I have a friend, Melissa, you know her, Laura. She's a great mother, she's a great mom, a great wife, great friend. She was working in marketing, traveling all over the country, which forced her to be away from her son, but it was a job she loved, and she did it happily until COVID hit. And of course, marketing, travel, the entire industry that she was in just completely vanished overnight. And she lost her job, um, which was devastating for her and her family, but forced her to try something new, to try anything new. Um, and she had a love for cooking. She started taking cooking classes even before the pandemic situation, but she loved cooking. And since she got laid off, she decided she'd just start making sandwiches. Lots of people were working from home in our community, so she decided she'd start making sandwiches and sell them to the neighbors and people in the surrounding area who are working from home and tired of cooking, or didn't have the time to cook, or tired of takeout. So she started coming up with really cool sandwich ideas and selling them to her neighbors, to our neighbors. And she ended up starting a business that she loves even more than the job she loved before. And it's a risk she would have never taken had it not been for COVID. So I say it's a blessing in disguise because she would have never taken that risk had she not been forced to. So I think it all really depends on, how you see things, and what you do with the opportunities given to you. Not every, like I said, not everybody is similarly situated, but when you are able to make a difference, um, and you should, because it really, I believe, benefits everybody when people do that. So it's tough. We have a 4-year-old. Thankfully, he's still in preschool, so we didn't have to worry about homeschooling and all of that, like a lot of parents do with not just one, but more than one kid. I can't imagine how tough it is for those parents who have to also hold down a job or don't have a job, and that presents its own set of challenges. But for us, we were very fortunate that my son's preschool was only closed for 2 months. But during that 2-month period, it was really difficult. It was hardest on him out of everybody because, at the time he was 3, he didn't understand what was going on. He didn't understand why he couldn't see his friends. We are inherently social creatures, so being forced to be away from other people is difficult on anybody, but growing and developing little brains and children are are especially hard hit when they are put in that situation. And like I said, fortunately, it was only for 2 months for us, but for parents who are still dealing with it on some level, it's very difficult. It's hard on your kids. We know children who have developed depression and real issues as a result. So I don't take it lightly. And I'm very grateful that our son is back in school. And for the most part, other than the masks and the shields, things aren't so different for him. But it's very difficult to see your kid go through something like that while also trying to hold down a job, take care of your own responsibilities, and take care of your own well-being.
Yeah, and I feel like this hits you harder than I think it would hit me because you're a mother, and but I do. I have total I'm just amazed at how you and every other woman similarly situated has adapted and has, like Laura, risen to the occasion, because I also stalk Laura. Shout out to Laura. I make her listen to this one since we're talking about her. She's a great example
Yeah.
because that's insane to me. Like, had she not lost her job, she had this passion, she had this seed of wanting to do something, and she didn't know because she was doing her job, her family was secure, and not until that was taken from her did she just go into her depths and just say, you know what, fuck it. Like, I got to do this for my family. It
Mm-hmm.
was like a flight or fight response. And good eats with Laura. And it's crazy that Mandana and I are like scrambling, but this is like an exemplar, right? Just it speaks so heavily to the change of times and to business owners in general that if there was a time to start your small business, it is now. It is now, because do not think that this market in whatever you choose is saturated. It is not. It is a time where people's ears and eyes are open and they want something more familiar. And I think that's why we love small businesses, is because we know the owners behind the small businesses care. And when Mandana and I speak to our business owners, we say, yeah, you've got a small business charm. You've got your community behind you. But please, on the legal side, don't think that you are small business in that sense, meaning have big business goals, have big business mentality. That's like, I think that when you tap into that mentality and that spirit, your small business will see longevity. as what Mandana is an expert in intellectual property. That is why I constantly go to her, is because she is able to see the small businesses and understand exactly how to service those intellectual property needs. And one of the things that is key in getting your small business to keep going and to expand is to think big, you know? And so with COVID and the what you were saying, it's heartbreaking, and we're seeing, as lawyers in the litigation sphere, in the business sphere, we're looking to our lawmakers to kind of give us guidance, because the lawyers here, we can only work with what is in place. The laws have yet to change drastically to address these gaping issues like commercial leases, like this pesky landlord tenant issues. Like, as you're saying right now, it's like the school situation, like, what are we doing when moms have to leave a job because they don't have care? They don't get paid, aside from what laws are in place. There's not, oh, COVID sick time. Right now, it's very much employer option. If your employer wants to uh, create those types of programs or help, then you're very lucky. But we're talking about a lot of money private employers have to put up without federal or state assistance, So we're not there. We're not there. And the lawyers over here, Mandana and I, we're scrambling.
Yeah, I mean, even if an employer wanted to keep his or her employees, and implement these programs like COVID sick pay or whatever the case may be, it's simply not possible for a lot of businesses. I remember at Allergan, when I was there, they talked about, even at a huge Fortune 500 company like at Allergan, they would say Allergan and big businesses are like a cruise ship. They can take a lot of people far, but they can't turn. They can't make adjustments. They can't uh, respond as quickly as some of these small businesses, which are like speedboats. They can go fast. They can make decisions quickly. They can, change direction quickly. They may not have as many passengers and can't carry as many people or go as far, but there's definitely, I think, a value to small businesses who can think like a big business, but still retain all of the benefits of a small business. So, having that legal protection and counsel's advice to help you grow really gives you the benefit of both worlds.
Well, thank you so much, Mandana, for joining us today on this podcast. It was great. As I said, Mandana is so ingrained in my own law firm. She's a huge part of my personal life as well. So I definitely encourage everyone hearing this podcast, think about intellectual property. It is not a far outreach from what you need as a small business to grow. So thank you so much, Mandana.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for having me. This was lots of fun, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of LawyerLifter.com. For more episodes and updates, please visit LawyerLifter.com. Talk to you soon.